Hello, WordNerds! Thank you for joining us today on this lovely Sunday for our book club. And our book club of this week is Turtles All the Way Down. Wait, what? Turtles All the Way Down.
Turtles All the Way John.
This is off to a great start already. All right, so yeah, I know a lot of us have some thoughts on this book, and you know, it's John Green, so everyone was freaking the freak out when this book came out. I think we'll have a good chat about this, so make sure to leave all your comments and everything in our little discussion below, and we'll try and get your comments and questions answered best we can. So I think we'll just go down the line and kind of give it a rating out of 5, and maybe also give it a rating like within the John Green spectrum, like how you think it fell. Yeah, because he has so many. So it's, you know, like, is it better than this book, or is it better than that book, or you know, like, yeah. Go with that. So I do have Emma first.
I'm gonna give it like probably like 3.5 stars, which I think is like a very like subjective, because like objectively I can say that like I think it's like a decent book. Like it's well written and like the story is good and the characters are written well, but like I just didn't connect with it, I guess. Like I read it really fast. I read it in like 2 days or something, but I had like no emotions towards it. Like I finished it and I was like, well, that was a book. Like, you know, like things happened, cool. So like just gets rated lower because of that, because like I just didn't really care about it, I guess. But compared to his other books though, I like honestly would probably say that like this would probably be like the highest ranked one for me, because like usually I can't finish them. So, but I've finished this one at least. So they're just not my thing, like not my cup of tea. But
all right, and then I have Kelly.
I'm going to go with 3.5 stars as well. I liked it well enough. The writing was fine. I liked it. It's just I struggled to like. I had to make myself keep reading it. I started it like with a month and a half to go, and then didn't pick it up for 2 weeks, and like, okay, I have to do this. So there's a bit of nudging myself, but the characters were interesting. The overall mystery to it was okay. I don't know. I don't have a lot of complaints. I just don't have a lot of praise either. I'm gonna call this one my like middle one, because I did like The Fault in Our Stars hooked me more, and I've only read 3 total, I think. So this is my middle book.
Okay. And then Megan.
I also gave it 3.5 on Goodreads. He does get that John Green bump though. So like, since you can't do half stars on Goodreads, I bumped it up to 4. Because it's like, well, it's John Green. So in the lineup of John Green books, this was not my favorite. I've read all of them, I think. Because I do like his voice, and like I enjoy reading his books. This one, like his mysteries, they're always not quite mysteries, but this one fell the most flat of all the mysteries for me. So I would probably put this above Paper Towns, but below An Abundance of Catherines. And I know like Abundance of Catherines is a lot of people's like least favorite, but I really liked that one. And I would put that one above it.
Cool. Okay, so I give this a 2 stars. I really did not like this book. I know. I know there's like a lot of anyways, I really did not like this book. There's a lot of things that fell flat for me. It felt very disjointed, and like the writing was fine and everything, but I think I was expecting a lot more, and I was kind of like, what the heck is this? Like, this seems very, like, unedited almost, like a first draft, I felt. And I'm going to put this above An Abundance of Catherines, because unfortunately I did not like that book. But like way below Looking for Alaska. That's like, that's that one. Yeah, so I see we have like it's like a middle ground, and I've heard that from a lot of people too, where everyone's like, it was okay, like nothing stood out a lot, nothing, you know, it wasn't terrible, but like it wasn't the most exciting thing on earth.
I did not enjoy reading it.
All right, well, is there any specific scenes that really like stood out to you, or like reasons that, you know, you really did like it? Like what was something that you were like, oh, that scene, like that's like really pivotal for it?
not a scene, but the characterization, I think. That, like, her OCD and all, like, the characters were interesting. Well, I don't want to say well developed, but they were interesting. So I think that's what really stood out for me. And it felt like a very personal book for John Green, which was nice. Because I love John Green so much. I get super, like, defensive of him, and I will sing his praises as a person until the end of time. So this book felt important to him, so I like it for that.
Yeah. And definitely, like, the portrayal of, like, the anxiety relating to her OCD was very, like, uncomfortable in the ways that I think it was supposed to be, obviously, because mental illness is not comfortable. But, like, it was hard to read.
Oh, yeah. I like that. There's that one scene when, like, she's, like, at the end when she's, like, freaking the freak out, and it's just those, like, 2 or 3 pages in the hospital when, like, she's just battling was really difficult to read. And it was so emotionally taxing, like, that one page. It was just so, like, oh my gosh, like, so anxiety producing. I know Erin is not here tonight because she could not read this book because it was very triggering for her. And as someone with anxiety, it was also not the greatest to read.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think it's, like, there's a lot of things that are very, like, accurate about the portrayal for, like, specific people, because obviously everyone's anxiety is different. But, like, it also, I think for a lot of people who have anxiety, it's not a helpful book. Like, it's more likely to be a harmful book than a helpful book, which is, like, a hard line, because you, like, want, like, accurate representation, but it's also, like, I wouldn't recommend this book to someone who I knew had severe anxiety, you know, like, at least without, like, a disclaimer of, like, be careful, you know? Like,
yeah, definitely. Well, okay, so I'm like, I need to get this off my chest, like, right now and then, because, like, I have this, like, thing that I always say about that, and, like, okay, OCD is, like, something that's close to John Green's heart. I get it, he wants to write it. And the whole, like, anxiety thing is, like, definitely, and it's definitely gonna be different for every single person that has this mental illness. But when I was reading it, and, like, as someone that has extreme anxiety and also intrusive thoughts, like, that's a big part of what, you know, happens up in here, is that I felt like it went from 0 to 100 really quick, and there wasn't a lot of in between. So it was like, oh, we have a little bit of, like, OCD, and, like, oh, you know, I need to, you know, oh, like clean my hands. And you're like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden it's like, you should eat hand sanitizer, and you're like, okay. And then it's suddenly like, I'm in the hospital and I need to eat hand sanitizer or I'm gonna die. Like, there was no like, there wasn't a build up. It was just was very quick. So I was a little bit like, that kind of felt like the pacing was off in that respect. And I also understand that he doesn't want to make, you know, every single page be the same thought over and over again. But I think, like, that part was kind of, like, wasn't quite fleshed out enough for me to believe it. Like, it felt like he was just like, I don't know. I thought that the pacing was off in that regard. But then also, where was I going with this? That's, like, my main big thing that I kind of want to say about it. Oh, that's right. So if she's thinking this all the time, you know, thinking that she has to be clean or she has to wash her hands or germs or what have you, there was multiple instances in the book where, you know, she'd do something and I'd think, like, oh, now she's going to have, like, a freak out, or now she's going to have a thought of, like, she needs to do that, and she doesn't. So it was kind of inconsistent in that way too.
I do remember there being a couple of times where I was like, wait, this one isn't triggering. And I don't know if I personally had, like, a huge problem with it, because I do know, like for some people, sometimes, like, you would think this thing would be triggering, but it's not, but this other thing is, and, like, it's really irrational. But I do remember a couple times being like, oh, you're just gonna walk right into that sewer, okay?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so, like, I felt like that was a little off. That was, like, my main thing, is that, like, if she, and I mean, I hate being this person because I hate when people say this to me, but, like, if she really had OCD, you know, she'd be feeling that way at this point. But, like, I get that it's different for everyone. I just felt like, as a reader reading it, I was like, this is kind of inconsistent. Okay, rant over. I really needed to get that out there.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't know that I particularly felt like the progression was uneven, but it definitely was like, we jump forward pacing wise, like, with the plot, and then we would slow down a lot for, like, an anxiety moment. Which for me personally, like, I enjoyed as much as you can enjoy reading, like, someone having an emotional breakdown. But for me, my anxiety does not manifest in the same way as this character's does. And so it was a little, like, it was still uncomfortable to read, and it was still very, like, I feel anxious reading this, but it wasn't the same, like, oh, wow, this is exactly how I feel sometimes. Mm-hmm. So there was, like, a little bit of, like, that disconnect. Yeah. I don't remember if there was a point to that.
No, so, like again, like everyone's gonna connect with it in a different way, and it's nice to have a book that a main character has a mental illness that's not really talked about, which is great, and some people are definitely gonna like it more than other people. So it's good to have out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me then. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like with a book like, because I think all forms of like mental health books, as long as they're not like really terrible representation, are important. But like a book like this for me, where the book basically ends with the character being like, wow, things are really bad. I'm gonna get help now. Like those books are really hard for me, rather than books where you get to see a character get better. Because for me, rather than being able to, as someone like with anxiety, rather than being able to see it and be like, okay, like there's a chance of getting better, instead it's like, wow, everything just sucks and it's just gonna get worse. Like there's no hope, none of the medications work. Like, and so that can be like really hard for me, I know, because I have like health related anxieties, like this character does. So like it was like, cool. There's no hope for me. I know there is, but like for me, books like I really loved The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli, because that just like shows a character who's just like dealing with mental illness like on an everyday basis, taking her medications, and like things are okay, and like that's way more helpful for me than like a book like this is. But I think this book is like important for like understanding. Like this is a book that I think is important for like other people to like read and be like, oh, this is what it feels like, See,
that's really interesting, because for me, in like the last chapter, I felt very like, oh, like this is never like mental illness. It just doesn't get better, and like that's okay. Like you can like still keep looking for help and keep relying on people. And so for me, it was a very like it's fine, but it's never going to get better.
I guess not necessarily that it needs to get better, but I like to see characters coping and like being able to like live their life. And I felt like she couldn't live her life, and I was like, this really sucks.
Everything is awful.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, I hate it.
Very much of like, what if my anxiety just gets worse until I get to a point where I like can't handle anything? Like, so.
Yeah.
I do think one of the big moments for me was her learning to cope and handle it, in that realizing how not involved she'd been, but like that moment of like, oh, I haven't really been paying attention to anyone but myself, and that's not really on my mental illness, that's kind of on me, and I need to look outward a bit more. That was a big moment for me, because I really like the friend freak out of, what's her best friend's name?
Oh, wait. I can't remember either.
Her friend is Daisy.
Daisy.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, when she finally starts reading Daisy's fan fiction, and then that leads to the fight about like the character that's based on her, and then Daisy kind of, well, you've never read any of it before, and like all of that and then her kind of evolving from there was a big moment for me. I think
my favorite part of the book was like the whole story of her friendship with Daisy. Yeah, and like she like didn't even know like what Daisy's parents did for a living. Like she knew like nothing,
right? Like what a terrible character. Like put your life together. Like
I really did like that whole story arc, because like I think at first when she first found that fanfic, I was like, wow, that is really rude. But then like I like started to like really understand where Daisy was coming from. Where Daisy was like, this was just a way for me to cope and like deal with like my feelings about your anxiety and your OCD. So yeah, I thought that was like a really good like story of like a friendship dealing with something that's serious,
Yeah, well, like I have an ex friend now, but she has a few mental illnesses, but it was always an excuse. So it was always like, oh, you better treat me well because of my mental illness, and like, oh, you better do this, and like, just because I can't pay you back, it's because of my mental illness, and like all this like random stuff. So she'd always be very like, she'd always blame it on that, and I'm like, no, you can have a mental illness and still be a nice person. Like you can fall back on that to some regard. You'd be like, hey, I'm having a really bad day, like, because my anxiety is really high. Like, sure, but you can't be like, oh, like, I just like am gonna be like talking all these terrible things to you behind your back, and then like, oh, but it's because of my mental illness. Like you can't, you know, be mad at me for that. Like it's just very so like I'm not friends with her anymore. But like that was like really what I saw in that relationship of Daisy being like, but like you're supposed to be my friend, like, and you don't understand anything about me because you're just so absorbed with yourself all the time. But I actually thought it was kind of cool because like you don't really see characters that are like that in books. You know, it's always you see from their perspective and you're like, oh, everything's fine. And then, but the side character's like, actually, you're not really being that good of a friend. And then they're like, oh, hey, that's right. So like, I loved Daisy. She was so wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like that's such an interesting, like, introspectively, like, in our own lives, how can we like delineate between those things? Because sometimes it does feel so like when you're in your head that much, how do you even tell like what is I need self-care and what is I need to be better?
Yeah, well, like I think the time where Daisy buys herself a car and then she's like, well, why are you doing that? Like, shouldn't you be saving money? And she's kind of like, this is like, I've dreamed of this. Like, now that I have money, like, I'm going to do it. Like, so she's like really angry. Like, you know, how do you judge me? Like my decisions for that. Like, that was kind of great that there was that scene. Like, I love that scene.
Can we talk about how weird that was? That they just took $100,000 from this kid.
Okay, that's this freaking plot though, man. Like, oh my lord, this plot.
But I also was like, I feel like in real life, like, you maybe would. Like, if someone's like, here's all this money, and like, you can like actually have the things you want. You know, like, I actually kind of appreciated that they weren't like, oh no, we won't take it.
Yeah,
you know?
I was surprised that it didn't happen that way. Yeah. And then I was uncomfortable for a while, and then I was like, but this is going to make their lives so much better.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, like, I'm thinking myself, if someone's like, here's $100,000, like, I'd be super awkward and, like, feel so weird about it. And then they're like, oh, we have to, like, talk to lawyers about getting banks set up. And I'm just like, this is not what I was expecting from this, like, fun contemporary novel, John Green. What the hell? Like, this is, like, real life, like, taxes and, like, hiring lawyers and stuff. Like, what is this?
Yeah. And the fact that Davis, was that the love interest's name?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. But Davis like gave it to her as like I don't want you to be my friend because you're trying to get this reward money. So here's this reward money just up front.
Yeah.
It's like, well, now you can never stop talking to him.
But like, and then I know if you like do stop talking to me, it's because all you wanted was the money.
Yeah.
Well, I like that he came out and said it, right? He was just like, well, you know, this is what I think is happening. And it was kind of nice instead of him being like super awkward, but I have feelings about these characters that I'm just like, okay, I'm going to something super meta, that this is the wrong story for these characters. Like they're there, but they're not right for the story. The story's wrong for them. And like they're super interesting characters by themselves, but I think in this plot and in this story, I'm like, you don't belong here.
Yeah.
Like I would definitely read a book about these characters, but not with this plot line.
I would also definitely read a book with that plot. I would love to read a book where
that actually had a more interesting
characters
ending.
with an actual plot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there was like no plot to it, and like it could have been a plot, but yeah, you're right. It like didn't really like it felt like the whole missing father thing was just there so she could reconnect with Davis, and then like have more anxiety because of the kissing. You know, so it was like what does this have to do with anything? Yeah, I definitely was like I was expecting a lot more of like them investigating the mystery throughout the story. Like even if they had just investigated more and like done more instead of like her just suddenly figuring it out at the end. And it was like,
oh, by the way, his body's in the sewers. You're like, what? Like, where did that come from? Like, how do you know that? It was it was very strange.
Yeah, I was very excited for this book coming out, and so I like read all of the like the synopses, and then they released the first chapter and stuff. And so in my head, it was going to be girl with severe anxiety, OCD, and her best friend try and solve the mystery of a super rich guy who has disappeared. She probably falls for rich, maybe dead guy's son. And like, I get why they pitched the book like that, but that wasn't like the plots. They went side by side, but it wasn't a mystery. And I feel like this one was pitched so much as a mystery.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, So this book is the equivalent of the job being a sales girl, but they market it as a customer experience representative. I think that all the time, like with like, why you just say that you need a cashier, like what is this like customer experience, whatever. I'm just like, it's a cashier. Just say it's a cashier. And I feel like they're kind of like trying to like hype the book up to be like, oh, it's like this big amazing thing and like
twisty.
Yeah,
it's like it's literary. It's John Green.
Yeah, but I was still expecting more from it. That's why it's such a low star for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just really invested in the mystery of it. I wanted
I
there
kept
to be
expecting
like
it to be more
twists and turns, and then they're in the sewer, and I'm like, this is it. We are gonna find a body. It is happening, and the mystery is on. And then we just like jump ahead 2 weeks, and it's like, yep, that was the body.
Okay.
And so like I don't feel like we needed to like revel in the death or anything, but like I thought the mystery was going to be the thing that like went hand in hand with her character growth, and it wasn't really.
Yeah. I think just being more involved in solving the mystery, like she stumbled onto it and then worked it out once she was there anyway. Like it's just
Yeah, if it hadn't been for that random art show, like
yeah,
I never figured it out. I feel like
It was almost like they were telling you the clues. They were like, oh, this clue means this. And then you're like, okay. And then they're like, oh, they're going to be in the sewers. You should pay attention to that. And you're like, okay. And then it's like, oh, there's a body. Surprise.
See, I didn't even realize I should be paying attention to it. I just thought it was another random scene that was just kind of happening.
Oh, me too. Yeah. They're like, there's a body. And I'm like, oh.
Like, I didn't even figure until after, like, the doesn't it smell worse thing was relevant. I just thought it was an excuse to get
me neither.
By the time I got that far into the book, I was like, okay, so like the mystery's not even a thing. We're not going to find out anything, are we? Like, I had just given up on the mystery by that point.
Me too.
I was watching some like recap videos because it has been a long time since I read the book, and I wanted to like have it all fresh in my head. And so I watched X-Teen May's like book chat about it or whatever, where she just like talked about it for 20 minutes. And she mentioned that like early on in the book, they say like rivers have mouths or whatever. And that is like the big clue. And so she mentioned that for her, it was like, well, obviously, why is no one listening to me? Rivers have mouths. The clue is the mouth. Go to the river. And like, I look back and it's like, yeah, it does mention rivers have mouths.
No,
you're talking about it.
Not even
talk about pretty early on his dad's company building the like system or whatever, the pipes or whatever. Tunnels.
Maybe I'm just unobservant. I didn't even notice.
Figure that out.
Oh gosh.
Oh, and what's the other thing? Like he left all of his money to the
Tuatara.
The Tuatara. Thank you. And you're like, what?
I loved that.
What even is this? It was so confusing.
I loved that he was like so obsessed with that prehistoric lizard. I was very invested in that. I was like, man, can we get another scene with that lizard?
I also expecting more to come of the lizard and like make it more relevant. I was like, oh my gosh, like the lizard ate him. I don't know, just like something. And instead it was just like
amazing.
Right? Like instead it was just like this weird thing that just kind of like put in, and then you're like, okay, this has nothing to do with anything. Like,
I feel like in
just
general,
for funsies.
There's like weird, quirky things that like mean nothing. Yeah. Like actually, when I started it, I was like annoyed because I've read Looking for Alaska all the way through, and I've like skimmed through The Fault in Our Stars because I couldn't get into it, but I wanted to like know it because everyone was talking about it. But like I was like, as soon as she started talking about like, oh, my name is Aza because my dad wanted me to be the beginning and the end of the alphabet and they wanted me to have a name that no one else would have. I was like, what is it with these fucking names in John Green books? Because it's like Alaska. Her parents let her point at the globe and choose her name.
Bless. Well, okay, I saw something on Tumblr, and it was like a text box. It was talking about like how John Green makes a novel, and it was like, so there's gonna be a male character who like spins wheel, like throws darts for a living, and has a draws out of a hat a albino best friend who, and then like Google's also loves iguana farming, and then and then he's like. No, and then he just like, and then they, types into a search engine like, go on an adventure to Peru to like, when I was just like pulling out all these things, like spinning wheels, like throwing darts at a board to like find his book ideas, and I'm like, you know what, accurate. Like that's what this book makes me think he did.
He just like Mad Libs to create.
Yeah, exactly.
I do feel like though with the Tuatara, there were some parallels there, like Aza was able to look from the outside and see how his obsession with this one thing ended up like hurting all the people around him. And I feel like that was probably important for her as a character, being able to be like, this guy was so fixated on this one thing that he couldn't see past it, that he like invested all his time in it, left all his money to it, and it's like hurting his sons now. And like I feel like there were parallels there with her trying to figure out like what things she was doing, like that she was fixating on that she didn't have to, like that she did have control over whether or not she fixated on, so that she could better treat Daisy and Michael and Davis eventually. Maybe.
Okay.
Oh,
no, go ahead. I'm just going to go to something different. So.
I was going to say, maybe I'm reading into it a lot. Like, but it's not.
I don't think so.
No, I think you're really right. Yeah.
That sounds smart.
Yeah.
It sounds literary. So.
Yeah. John Green loves literary.
Yeah, I struggle with literary. Like, I'm just not the right person for these books.
I like some of it, but not always. Not when it gets too weird. And like quirky for the sake of being quirky.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna go to N. Griswold's comment because it reminded me of something that I had feelings about. And she said it was 3 stars for her, and then I'm guessing she. I'm sorry, I just guessed someone's pronouns. Is that? Yeah, then I read the last 2 pages, and now I don't know how I feel. I've only read The Fault in Our Stars. I enjoyed that much more. Which, yes, those last 2 pages.
Oh my gosh, what are the last 2 pages?
She suddenly starts. It goes to like adult her basically.
Yeah,
oh, that's right.
It's so weird.
That was super weird.
I was like, I don't need this. Like, why?
No, it was suddenly like, oh my gosh, like, wow, I'm thinking back and like, oh, that boy that I loved at one point, like, I'm gonna go on into my life and like have children and then like have a life and then remember him all. Like, it was just, yeah, it
felt very much like telling the denouement of the story instead of showing it. Like, it was like, and this is what it all meant. I don't know, like, it felt like it was like giving you the moral of the story. Like,
I don't know. I liked that part. I liked that, like, I felt like the only way you could end the story would be looking back on it. Like, with Aza as the narrator, like, how could she ever get out of her head enough if she hadn't gotten past it? And was, like, looking back on it.
I don't mind when the books do that. Like, I like when they're like, oh, 20, 30, 40 years later, like, looking back at the thing. But this one just felt out of place.
It was very short.
Like,
I wouldn't have minded if it was like a little longer. Something that was less like last paragraph moral. But I love that it ended with like one of Davis's poems or whatever. With
it's kind of cool.
I did like
no one ever says goodbye unless they want to see you again. Which every now and then he just like says sentences that it's like, oh no.
Yeah, that's a John Green sentence.
My feels. How could you do this to me? Oh, we've got a lot of really great comments. Thank you so much to everyone who is joining with us. If you have anything you want us to discuss with regards to the book, let us know. And Griswold also said regarding the money thing that she didn't think she could have kept that money. And I'm kind of curious, like, if you guys, with your personalities, had been in the situation, do you think you could have kept the money?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a broke college student. Like, yes.
Well, like, thinking back on like being a teenager, like my family was not as poor as Daisy's or anything, but like we did not have much money. So like if someone had been like, here's a bunch of money that you can use to like pay for college and stuff, like, yeah, like I'm not an idiot. I need the money.
Like, I'd probably donate a bunch of it or whatever, but like at the same time, like, yo, that's a lot of money. Like, that is a lot of money.
I feel like I would have like put a lot of it in like savings and yeah, maybe like donated a little bit of it. But yeah, there's no way I would have said no at that age. If someone was like, yeah, this will pay for all your college, like.
Well, it's actually kind of nice that like in that situation they're like, yeah, okay. I'm just like, yeah, well, this freaking teenager who's like, here's $100,000. Like, I'm like,
I found it in 6 different jars in my house.
Oh yeah, right. There's one like cereal box. You're like, what the hell?
I know there's more of it.
Yeah.
Like, really? So like scavenger?
Yeah, right. You have a list of like where all those places are, or like.
Yeah, I don't know that I could have, but I also, like when I was in high school, my parents were not poor anymore like they were when I was a child, and so I don't know like how that affects it. But I don't know if I could have been like, I don't know if I could have taken the money and then still talked to him afterwards.
I think
like,
it's
weird.
Well, it's like teenagers being teenagers, and you know, if you're gonna give that amount of money to a teenager, they're probably gonna say yes. So you know, makes sense.
Especially to teenagers that like their families don't have a lot of money and they're like don't know how they're gonna pay for college and stuff. Like, I think it's pretty realistic. Yeah. And like, and I liked that, especially since both of them came from families without a lot of money, that like there wasn't like the like, I don't know, because sometimes when you like don't have a lot of money, there's this like weird like stigma of like if someone does try to like help you out, you're supposed to say no and like not take a handout and stuff. So I liked that. I felt like it kind of was like pushing back against that like stigma and shame and being like, yeah, you can like take that and like use it to go to college and like get an education and get a good job, you know, and there's like no shame in that, you know.
Yeah, I did love the conflict too between Daisy and Aza. Aza feeling like Daisy wasn't being responsible enough with it, and Daisy being like, "I've literally never had anything that was for me."
And she's like, "You literally already have a car and a laptop. Like, I don't. Like, it's not like she was like, "Ooh, I need to go get one," even though I already have one. Like, she didn't have.
Yeah. I just loved Daisy all around.
Yeah, Daisy was amazing.
She was great. So Michael, I kind of felt whatever about.
Is that the little brother?
No, Michael is Daisy's boyfriend / the artist who does the thing in the sewers.
Oh, see, I didn't even remember him, and I read his book like 2 weeks ago.
Man, he was just there.
He was there so they would go to the sewers.
And I hated that. Yeah, he was supposed to be like Aza's other bestie.
Who we never saw.
And
until he was conveniently there to take them to the sewers for the art show.
Yeah, and to like provide conflict when Daisy started dating him.
Yeah, whatever.
One of the things I really liked was, because it was a more introspective book, there was a lot of communication between the characters. Like, communication was never really the big problem.
That's
standing
true,
in the way of
actually.
anyone's character development. Like, Davis is like texting Aza and he's like, "So were you on my website right now reading my super personal blog posts?" And I feel like Teen Me would have been like, "No, absolutely not."
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, yeah, I am.
If there's one part where they're FaceTiming or something at night, and the line goes along the lines of like, the light from my phone is illuminating him, the light from his phone is illuminating me, and you know, they're like looking at each other through like the light of the other person, and it's just like, oh, it's like actually like really sweet and like a really like calm moment like at night. I was like, oh, that's really nice.
Yeah,
that stood out for me as well. Although I got a little like confused and like knotted up and okay, wait, what's happening?
Yeah, I thought their whole relationship was very interesting. Just like how it was so natural when they were communicating like through the phone, but then like you really felt that tension when they were side by side.
Anything else we wanted to cover?
I think that's it for me. I said my 2 large philosophical complaints about it, and then the rest of it has been introspective and kind of fun.
Yeah, so we hit the Tuatara, the anxiety, Michael, Dave.
I like her relationship with her mom.
Yeah.
I like the mom a lot.
That's
all I have to say about it. I like the mom.
Yeah, right.
It was a good parent-child relationship to see.
Yeah. I also really like the relationship between Davis and his little brother.
Yeah.
I thought that was cute / like very naturally tension filled.
Yeah, when you're looking at the little brother, like you can definitely see that like he's acting out because he doesn't have a father figure. And you're like, oh, I get it though. Like I've seen teenagers who do that, and I knew people that had siblings or whatever that did that, and I'm like, oh, it's like too real almost. Like
yeah, and like all of his scenes with Asa were very like heartbreaking and just want to like touch his face.
And we're like, oh,
okay.
It just feels like really realistic with like Davis being like, I'm only 18. I can't be his parent. Like I don't want to be his parent. Because like sometimes like in books where like a parent is like missing or dead or something, it's like the older sibling character is like, yes, I will take care of you. That is my duty. But like Davis is like, no, I want to like go to college and have a life. Like like I love my brother, but I'm not his parent.
Yeah. And it was interesting seeing like the conflict that he had in like, this is what I feel like I should step in and start helping more, but like I don't know how to do that. Do I tell him that it's bedtime? Like I've never had to tell my little brother to go to bed before.
Oh, he has like a maid that like does everything for him.
Yeah, I thought that was done really well. Like the maid leaving at night or whatever, and then like that intense, like the house felt emptier the way he wrote it once she left. And like just because the kids were so like, what do we do now? We are now raising ourselves. But also they had no family at all. No one to watch them. Except the lizard.
That now has a lot of money.
A really rich.
A really, really rich lizard.
That's already really old, so who knows how much longer she's gonna make it.
That's true.
Yeah. I do love the book has when you take off the cover, it's got the little, I don't know if the camera's gonna catch it.
Oh my gosh,
like the Tuatara engraved in it.
That's hilarious. I didn't even notice that. Oh man, that's good. Like, will my light show it? Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, you can see it on right.
Oh yeah, yours shows it.
Little lizard. I didn't even notice.
It's so cute. Also, pet peeve that hasn't gotten brought up yet. I bought one of the signed copies.
Me too.
From Barnes and Noble, but the sticker left a ton of residue.
Oh no!
And I'm so mad.
I didn't try to take mine off. What color do you have? I have red.
I have green, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
I heard him say that the silver ones are the rarest ones because like he only signed like 100 in silver or something, like 500 in silver.
Dang.
You know.
Yeah, my sister-in-law got a DFTBA one.
Oh, nice.
It's such a fun marketing thing, though. Like I just watched one of his videos where he's like co-signing some of Hank's books and stuff. It's so much fun. Like it just like his kid leaving Pokeballs and all of that.
So cute.
And Sarah drew like a handful of Yetis on them.
Got the whole family involved.
Yeah. So cool.
Well, do you have any other comments or questions to wrap us up?
It's good. Read it. Especially if you like John Green, like you will probably enjoy reading it.
Although we just spoiled like a crap ton for you if you haven't read it yet.
Like the plot isn't that involved though, so what did we really spoil?
It's not really a plot twist or anything.
And Griswold did bring up something else that kind of jumped out for me as well. She found herself wondering what the plan was when the father just went down into the tunnels. The book kind of glazed over it. If the intention was suicide or something, like what was he planning?
Yeah,
that's true.
It sounded like he just like ran out of food, or like it was like the elements and lack of food. So I'm like, was it intentional? Like,
yeah, like it was a unexpected way to commit suicide if that was the plan. But it felt like, from what I gathered of the character, it didn't seem like, I don't know, it felt like he was trying to like plan something. I don't know, it was weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it like made it seem like he just went down there to hide and then was like, oh, it's cold down here, you know.
I guess I will just die here.
I don't want the cops to find me, so I'm not going to go out for shelter. Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like,
it
you're
does
a rich
feel
guy,
very
like,
John Green.
Punishment from the law really have been that bad? Martha Stewart's doing fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely felt like a very John Green type of end for a character who was supposed to be really shrouded in mystery.
Mm.
I don't know that he was particularly shrouded in mystery. I think he was supposed to be. But similarly with characters in Looking for Alaska who die, it's like, I don't know, like, did you die by suicide? Did you die because of an accident? I guess we don't get to know.
I guess at least like in Looking for Alaska, it brings it up of like, we don't know, instead of just being like, this happened. Like there was no like, we're not sure what his plan was. Like I felt like it wasn't addressed. Like the characters were just like, yeah, he went down there and died from the elements.
Yeah, that's true.
A logical way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm torn between like I wanted a lot more from it, but I also don't want to be like, so give me the details of the death.
Yeah.
You know?
On that note.
Yeah. It's time to wrap this up. We've been going for a little while. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
All right, lots of things to say about it. Lots of discussion points. All right, well, I guess we'll just wrap this up on Sunday. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you all enjoyed Turtle All the Way Down, or if you did not read it, that you go and read it and check it out and take our compliments with a grain of salt. And we will see you all next week. We got daily videos for you as always. We'll see you next Sunday.
Cool. So definitely be there.
Yes, we're going to start doing some write-ins in preparation for July's Nano, Camp Nano, so it should be real fun. We will hopefully see you guys all on Sunday. Same time, same place. All right. Bye, everybody.